Hey everyone, welcome to my channel, Africa for Us. So this is the place where we talk openly and honestly about Africa, what's working, what's not, and what needs to change. And we do it through an African lens, mine as a starter, a daughter of the soil, and yes, absolutely entitled to share my own perspective on our continent. So here we keep things real. We look at facts, we question the stories we've been told, and we're not afraid to talk about the uncomfortable stuff. Because honestly, if Africa wants to move forward, we simply can't lie to ourselves anymore. And just so you know, this channel isn't here to push anyone's agenda, no propaganda, no sugarcoating, just honest conversations about African needs and how we can shape a better future. So let's get into it. Let's have the conversations that actually matter. Okay, let's start today's episode, okay? We are talking about a country that is both amazing and heartbreaking at the same time, the Democratic Republic of the Congo. The DRC is one of the richest countries in the world, and when it comes to natural resources, it has minerals, forests, water, and land that many countries can only dream of. And yet, it still faces serious problems like conflict, poverty, and instability. So, today we are going to ask some honest questions together. The first one: how is it possible that more than 60 years after independence, the DRC is still seen by many as a failed state? What has kept the country from moving forward? Second, we'll talk about leadership. What does good, strong leadership actually look like for a country as big and complex as the DRC? Because the truth is, leadership can make or break a nation. And third, we are going to look at the Inga Dam project. This project could give electricity to millions of people and even power other African countries. So why has it not been built yet? And how could finishing it change the future of the DRC? We have a lot to explore today, and we are going to break everything down in a clear and simple way. So before we even talk about why the DRC is struggling, let's start with something that never lies: the data. So people can lie, politicians can tell stories, institutions can hide their failures, but numbers don't lie. And honestly, the numbers about Congo, they hit very, very hard. So according to the 2024 Fragile States Index, FSI, the DRC is the fourth most fragile country in the entire world, not just in Africa, in the whole world. Now, let me explain the scale so this makes sense. Zero means a strong, stable country. 100 means extreme fragility, basically a state on the verge of collapse. Most functioning countries sit somewhere around 20 to 40. Congo, it's scoring between 90 and 98 in many areas. So, and it's not just one report saying this. The World Bank, the IMF, the United Nations Agency, ACLD, all of them, reputable institutions, they all point to the same problem. Congo is breaking down across almost every area a state is supposed to manage. Let's talk through it, like we're just having a conversation. First, security. The DRC scored 98 out of 100, extremely fragile. In Eastern DRC, more than 120 militias operate freely. That's millions of people living under armed groups instead of their own government. When the state cannot control violence, the state is basically not there. Second, in terms of politics, it scores 95 out of 100. The political elite is constantly fighting itself. Rival factions, networks, personal empires. Reforms don't fail by accident. They are blocked intentionally. Power comes first, people come last. Third, group conflict. DRC scores 96 out of 100. Ethnic tensions, land disputes, cross border interference. Conflicts in Congo are not random events, they are part of how the system functions. It's like a fire that never gets put out. 4. Economy. It's a rich land, but people are poor. More than 60% of Congolese, over 60 million people, live in poverty with less than $2 per day. Over 80% of the economy is informal, and GDP per person is only $700 a year, when the world average is $1,300. So it's definitely one of the lowest in the world in one of the richest natural resource countries on earth. That's not bad luck. That's a system designed to extract wealth, not develop it. 5. Public services. It scores 92 out of 100. Electricity access is only 19%. That means over 80 million people live without power. Let's remind you that the Congo has 120 million people. So, rural areas, only 1% of the population have access to electricity. So, no electricity means no modern hospitals, no modern schools, no factories, no jobs, no national development. Let's stay clear. Electricity is not a luxury. It is recognized by the UN as part of the right to an adequate standard of living. Congo fails to meet the basic right every single day. 6. Demographics. It scores 94 out of 100. The population is growing fast, but infrastructure is barely there to keep up. So it's a perfect storm. 7. Displacement. It scores 97 out of 100. More than 7 million people are internally displaced people, the highest score in the world. So entire communities have been forced to flee. A government that cannot protect its citizens cannot claim legitimacy. Brain drain. 89 out of 100 score. So millions, including highly skilled doctors, engineers, professors, have left the country. When the talent leaves, development leaves with them. 9. State legitimacy. It scores 93 out of 100. Elections are often disputed. Corruption is everywhere. People obey the system because they must, not because they trust it. 10. Rule of law. Scores 91 out of 100. Courts don't function well. Security forces lack training and resources. Elites act like the law simply does not apply to them. And when the law doesn't apply to everyone, it stops applying to anyone. The simple truth: when a country scores 90, 95, 98 on a scale when 100 means total collapse, we are not talking about a few problems. We are talking about a state that has failed in practice, even if it still exists on paper. And this leads us to the next thing we need to understand. Basically, we need to look at how the institutions in the DRC work, the rules they follow, the way they are set up, and the instruction they run on. Because once you understand how institutions work, you understand exactly why the DRC ends up with results like these. And that brings us to the big idea: why nations fail. So now we've seen the numbers. The big question is this: why does the DRC perform so badly in almost every area? To really understand that, we have to look at how the institutions work, the rules, the systems, the way power operates behind the scenes, and this is where the book Why Nations Fail comes in. So if you haven't heard of this book before, trust me, you want to. It's written by two economists, Darren Achimoglu and James Robinson. And the moment you read it, you'll never look at a country the same way again. By the way, I believe that Robinson had carried out research on the DRC for almost 20 years. So the main idea of these two economists is very simple. So countries succeed when their institutions include people, and they fail when their institutions exclude people. That's it. That's the whole engine of development or collapse. Let me explain it the way the authors do, but in normal, everyday language. Inclusive institutions are systems that lift people up. So these are systems where your rights matter, your talent can take you somewhere, innovation is encouraged, and ordinary people have a real chance to succeed. What an example, Botswana. Okay? Botswana built fair rules, stable institutions, and a system that did not just benefit the elite, it benefited the whole country. The results: stability, growth, rising living standards, nothing magical, just good institutions and management. In the opposite, extractive institutions are systems where that hold actually people down. Okay, so these systems are systems where power is concentrated at the top, opportunity is blocked, most people are excluded, and a small elite controls everything. And unfortunately, this is where the DRC fits perfectly. After independence, Congo did not break away from the old colonial extraction system. It actually kept it. And over time, the leaders did not replace the system, they just refined it. Think about this. Think of it like this, okay? You take the resources, you centralize the power, you exclude the people. That become the country's operating manual. So what happens? You get a country blessed with unbelievable natural wealth, but millions of citizens living in poverty. Not because Congolese people lack intelligence, not because the country lacks potential, but because the system is designed to extract wealth, not to share it. And here's the important part. If you want a country to rise, you cannot just add money or build roads or hope for miracle. You must change the institutions. And that requires transformational leadership. Leadership that opens the system instead of closing it. Leadership that creates opportunity instead of hoarding it. And leadership that gives people space to grow. Because at the end of the day, it's not a country's natural resources that decide its future. It's the rule of the game, how it is managed, how institutions operate. And once you understand the rules, you understand the destiny. Now let's talk about leadership, real leadership. Because if we want to understand what transformational leadership looks like, we don't have to search far. We already have a powerful example, Singapore. So, back in 1965, Singapore was basically a struggling island with a GDP of about $500 per person. And it also gained independence from the British at the same time as most African countries. So, it has no natural resources, no minerals, no oil, nothing. Okay. Fast forward to 2023, and Singapore GDP per person is around 85,000 USD. So, one of the highest in the world, one of the greatest economic transformation ever recorded. So, what changed? Did Singapore suddenly discover diamonds? No. They had leadership, real, disciplined, long term leadership under Lee Kuan Yew, former prime minister. So, and by the way, in his memoir, From Third World to First, a book that I highly recommend, he explains in detail how Singapore rose step by step. It is a book, like I said, I highly recommend because it doesn't just talk about leadership, it teaches leadership. And here's something very interesting. Many African leaders have tried to copy LKY's model. Some study his speeches, others quote him, and many admire how he built a clean, stable, efficient state from almost nothing. But admiration is one thing, execution is another. Now, let's see the key point. If Singapore could rise with nothing, just imagine what the DRC could do with everything if the right leadership finally stepped in. Because countries don't develop by accident. They don't wake up suddenly rich. They rise because leaders make deliberate choices about institutions, governance, human capital, and especially about how to attract investors and turn national potential into real opportunity. So let's get to the heart of it. What kind of leader does the DRC actually need? Here are the essential traits to my point of view. So, for me, these are the 11 must have traits of a transformational leader. First, it has to have a clear national vision. A leader must explain where the country is going so every citizen understands the journey. Second, it has to have a strong integrity. Corruption kills progress. If the leader is corrupt, nothing else works. Third, it has to govern in a pragmatic way, focus on solutions and real results, not ideology or drama. Fourth, he must respect the rule of law. A country becomes stable only when rules are applied fairly and predictably. Five, he must push for meritocracy. He must give jobs to competent people, not friends, relatives, or loyalists. Sixth, he has to make decisions based on data. Okay, a leader must rely on facts and evidence, not rumors, assumptions, or improvisation. Seven, he has to master economy. He has to come with strategy. So he has to come up with real development ideas that create value inside the country, not exporting raw resources forever. Eight, he must have the ability to attract investors. Credibility brings capital. No investor will come where leadership is chaotic or unpredictable. Nine, he must invest in human capital. A nation rises when its people are educated, skilled, and healthy. 10. He must build national unity. Without unity, every institution collapses. A divided country cannot make progress. And finally, he must prioritize on building infrastructure, especially electricity. No modern economy can function without power. If the light stays off, the economy stays off. And that's the real story. The DRC has the potential. The land has the resources. The people have the talent. But potential only becomes reality when leadership creates the right environment for a nation to grow. Right, let's talk about something huge, and I mean huge, huge, something that could literally change the entire future of the DRC. I'm talking about the Inga Dam 3. Now, if you don't know much about the Congo River, let me tell you, this river is a monster, one of the most powerful rivers on earth. If rivers had rankings, the Congo River would be heavyweight champion. And just one part of it, Inga Dam 3, could generate 4,800 megawatts of electricity. That's not nice to have power. That's changed the whole country power. This is not a small project, okay? This is the project, the one that could unlock Congo's future. But here's the reality today. Like I said earlier, only 90% of Congolese have electricity. In rural areas, it's 1%. So more than 80 million people live without reliable power. 80 million people in the dark. And here's the important part. No country in history has industrialized without electricity. None. So when the lights are off, industry don't grow. Minerals can't be processed locally. Factory can't operate. Jobs don't appear. There is no middle class. The economy stays stuck. Electricity is not a luxury. It's a human right, actually, recognized in UN Article 25 as part of the right to a decent standard of living. Without power, that right cannot exist. And that's why I always say, The future of Congo is tied to the Inga Dam 3. So, if Inga 3 is built, it could bring industrialization to the entire economy, transform minerals at home instead of exporting them raw, attract major global investment, lower production cost, create hundreds of thousands of jobs, export electricity across Africa, make the DRC the energy engine of the continent. It's that big. This is Congo's best chance at real transformation. So, if the benefits are so clear, why has Inga Dam 3 never been built? Let's break it down. So here are the 10 main obstacles to building the Inga Dam 3. Okay. So the first one has to do with the funding. So there is this project will require up to 25 billion, no, between 10 and 25 billion US dollars. So there's a financing gap. So that level of investment is extremely hard to mobilize in a country that has weak institutions. Second, the Congo lacks the technical capacity needed for a mega dam. A project like this requires world-class engineering and hydropower expertise, skills the country does not yet have at scale. Third, Inga Dam 3 must connect to all infrastructure. Inga Dam 1 and Inga Dam 3 that were built earlier are aging and poorly maintained. So linking a huge new project to old system is both risky and expensive. Fourth, corruption. Corruption scandals have damaged the project's credibility. So decades of governance issues have scared away serious investors. Five, political instability and security issues raise the risk. Militias, conflict, and unpredictable politics make lenders very nervous. Six, the National Utility Company, SNEL, is too weak to manage a project of this size. Financial and operational problems undermine confidence. Seven, previous international agreements collapsed. Chinese, Spanish, Australian, all those consortia all walked away. This fuels global skepticism. 8. Building Inga Dam 3 could displace more than 30,000 people, so this creates significant social risk. 9. There is a heavy long-term debt risk, okay? So if revenues fall short, Congo could enter a deep financial crisis. And finally, 10, investors do not trust the governance system. Weak institutions make it extremely hard to secure stable financing. And here's the truth we cannot ignore. Talking about development in the DRC while pretending that Inga Dam 3 does not matter is not strategy. It is denial. Without electricity, nothing moves. When you really look at everything, the data, the weak institution, the lack of strong leadership and effective leadership, and the energy crisis keeping millions of Congolese in poverty, one thing becomes very clear. Congo is actually not doomed. It has simply been mismanaged. And anything that has been mismanaged can be rebuilt. That's the real truth. Yeah. So thank you so much for watching. So if this episode made you think differently or helped you understand the situation a little bit better, share it with someone else, okay? And make sure that you join me for the next conversation because understanding Africa starts with one simple act, having the courage to talk honestly about it. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to this channel. I appreciate you, and I'll see you next time.